Money. It affects our everyday life. But how do we make more of it? Manage it. And make sure we make the most of our money. Welcome to Money Mindful, a podcast to teach and support you as you learn to manage your money.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of the Money Mindful podcast. I am your host, Meaghan J Smith. All right, I'm going to get just straight into it today. Our brains tell us lies. Yep, don't believe your brain. I mean, come on. If I listened to my lizard brain all day, I would never leave the house. Actually, hang on a minute. I work from home, so I don't ever leave the house. Let me rephrase that. So I'd never get out of bed, let's say, okay? I want to give you some info today that is going to help you declutter your head from all the rubbish that rolls around in there and turn it into one of those gorgeous minimalist homes you see in all the glossy magazines. I bang on about this all the time, and I will continue to do so because this is the absolute key to life, the universe, and everything. Awareness. The first absolute step to changing your money mindset and inviting more cash into your life is to identify exactly what you think now, to get super clear on understanding why it is exactly that you earn what you do and have the net worth that you have. Hint, it's all about what you think about money. So why do we need to bother identifying what we think now? Like, if we want to make more money, why don't we just think money-making thoughts? Well, yes, you could, but the trouble is to think new thoughts and have them actually have an effect in our life, you need to believe them. You can think I'm a money-making machine until you're blue in the face. But if what you're really thinking is that you're a shameful person for wanting to make more money, well, you're going to have a tough time because you have competing thoughts. I want to give you some info about how our brains work to help you get it sorted out, like once and for all. So first of all, our brain's number one job is to keep us alive. Okay? It's to keep us alive. Our brain seeks pleasure, like things like food, sex, warmth. It preserves energy and it avoids pain. And we've got two parts of our brain, so to speak. I'm really making this really simplistic, but there's like the prefrontal cortex that makes all the decisions, like we can make decisions ahead of time. That's what distinguishes us in the animal kingdom. And then there's what I like to call our lizard brain. And that's the one that is keeping you alive, like doing all the things that like seek pleasure, preserve your energy, and avoid pain. And how this looks in consideration to our net worth is that our brain doesn't care if a thought is good or bad. For example, if you learnt growing up that you have to work long hours to make money and you've never examined or questioned the validity of that thought intentionally, your brain is simply going to continue thinking that. Remember, your brain likes to be efficient and conserve energy. So if that thought that you have to work hard for money hasn't killed you and doesn't put you in danger, it's much easier for your brain to just think the thoughts it's always thought. Thinking new thoughts on purpose requires more effort. It's so good to be aware of this because it makes our lives make so much more sense when we understand this. Why do the same problems keep happening to you? Because your brain is an efficient machine. It is thinking the same thoughts it's always thought and will continue to do so until you decide to think something different on purpose. That's why it's so hard to break old habits, because it's efficient to do things the same way we've always done it. Now, you might feel uncomfortable that you overspend. But if overspending is something that you've always done to avoid pain, you're going to continue to do that because it's keeping you alive. You're avoiding feeling pain. You already know how to think those thoughts. I have to get that new dress. I need this. So your brain will just keep thinking in that way until you deliberately get onto yourself and purposefully think in a new way. And that takes more effort. Okay, so how do we clean up our thoughts? I'm going to use the analogy of a pantry, okay? Think about the thoughts in your brain like the things that you have in your pantry. There are a lot of thoughts in your pantry. Some you use every day, like the salt and pepper, maybe the bread, the cereal. These thoughts, in quotation mark, if they serve you very well and they're on high repeat, okay? Others, not so much. Maybe the cans of corn or beans that only come out when you get triggered, in quotation marks, when your mother-in-law comes over. Do you get what I mean? It's like there's certain thoughts that are rolling around in the back there that we're not thinking them on a day-to-day basis, but when we get put in certain situations, those thoughts come up for us. And then there's those random spices that are 10 years out of date that you didn't even realize you still had. And these are the thoughts that maybe you just took on something when you were a kid, indoctrination of what you see. We're such sponges when we're kids. And if we don't examine things as adults and redecide what we actually want to believe on purpose, so many of us, myself included, there's nothing wrong with you if you do this, we walk around with these thoughts that we've just thought for so long and we just think they're the facts of life, but they're not. They're actually just thoughts in our head that are those random spices that have been sitting in the back of the cupboard for 10 years that we just didn't even notice were there. They've just become part of the landscape. It's not until you pull everything out of the pantry and actually examine it and look at it and think, hang on, do I still want these random spices that are 10 years out of date? No, I don't. The easiest thing to do would be just to stick them back in the cupboard out of the way, or not even pull stuff out of the cupboard in the first place. But we don't even know that stuff's there until we actually sort through the pantry, so to speak, or sort through our thoughts. So these thoughts are getting in the way of new money-making magic. These are the thoughts you want to identify and clear out of your pantry or head. Nothing's gone wrong here. We all have random condiments of thoughts that we are not aware of. That's why you coach yourself or have a coach to point them out. I'll share an example from my life so you understand what I mean. I used to feel a lot of frustration towards my parents for not being more savvy with their money. I blamed them for my financial circumstances. It's embarrassing to share these thoughts with you, actually, but I think it will be really helpful for you. So I'm going to do it. So when I was saving for a house, I felt like it was unfair that I couldn't rely on my parents to help me financially to get into the market. I thought that they weren't good with money and blamed them for my financial circumstances. Now, I'm going to add that when this was happening, I was a grown woman in my 30s at the time, okay? Yes, I just let it all hang out there for you guys. Okay, so when I took the time to explore my thoughts and write down what I was thinking, I came to the realization that when I thought that my parents aren't good with money and I blamed them for my circumstances, what that resulted in for me was that I wasn't being responsible for my money. Right? It seems so obvious when I talk about it now, but I was blinded to it at the time. And that is why it's so important to examine our thoughts deliberately. Because as soon as I was aware of this thought and what it was creating for me, I dropped it. Do you get how that worked? It's like I was blaming them and I was saying that because my financial circumstances was their fault because they weren't good with money, right? But do you see how when I thought that they weren't good with money, actually through that feeling of blame and projecting it onto them, actually what I was doing is I wasn't taking responsible for my money. I mean, it had nothing to do with them at that stage. I was a 30-year-old woman, for goodness sake. Like, my parents had nothing to do with my financial situation. And yet, unconsciously, I was thinking on some level that they were responsible for my financial situation. Like, I mean, that sort of stuff, that is mind-blowing for me. This is why I love this work, because as soon as you are onto yourself and you understand this stuff, you can change. So instead, I chose to think that I'm 100% responsible for how much money I make, and that shifted everything for me. And can you see that when I was blaming my parents, I was completely powerless? Because from that model I was living from, in order for my circumstances to change, like for my financial circumstances to change, my parents would have had to have changed, which of course was never going to happen. I mean, I have zero control over that, right? So when I fully owned what I was thinking and the results that was creating for me, I had all the power to change, and did. Now, this is what I mean by clean up your thoughts. It's like the pantry analogy, like deliberately take everything out of your pantry, examine it, decide if any of the food is out of date and needs to be tossed. Like that thought that my parents were responsible for my financial circumstances. Of course, like that's an old thought, and that's something that I don't want to live from now. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't help me in any way, right? In fact, it creates a negative result in my life. And so this is what I mean. This is what I'm always talking about create awareness around what you're thinking, because what you're thinking determines like how you feel and act, and how you act in the world, like the actions that you take, that's what causes the results. But if you work backwards, it's like results happen from actions. You take particular actions because of how you feel. How you feel is based on how you think. So it's like we can always work it back to what you're thinking. That's why awareness around what you're thinking is so, so important. So the way you can do this is by doing what I call a thought download. And this is a process of emptying all your thoughts out on paper so you can see with fresh eyes what you are actually thinking and if those thoughts are serving you or not. And also it creates some separation when you write it down on paper, because we think our thoughts are us. Like we think what we think is the truth. It's like this is our identity, but it's not. And when you put it down on paper, it's a lot more easier to create that distinction. I did a series of episodes earlier this year explaining all of this. So if you haven't listened to them, I suggest you go back and listen to those. They're 3 episodes, they're in a row, and they all start with the title Thought Work Foundations. So go back and listen to them if you want to learn more about this. You can do thought downloads specifically on your thoughts about money, or you can do it on any area of your life, or you can just like free flow, like whatever's coming up for you at the time. Okay, and here's a tip that also, like another angle to look at it from. This process is like dental hygiene. We don't just clean our teeth once a year and say that'll do. Gross. Can you imagine how gross that would be? We clean our teeth every day to keep them clean, right? And it's the same with thought work. And quite frankly, this is the secret sauce to my life, like to my success, to everything. I simply do thought work every day. Yes, every day. I mean, listen, occasionally if I sleep in on the weekend and we get up and do stuff for the kids, maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday, I might not do it. But my routine is I get up in the morning, first thing I do is make myself a coffee. I sit down and I do a thought download, and I see what's coming up for me, and then I get intentional about how I want to think about my day. Because what that does is it just clears out all the rubbish in my head, but it clears it out every day, because we have about 60,000 thoughts approximately that we think every day. And some of them we think on repeat, and some of them are just new random thoughts that pop up because of, a new circumstance we're in. And so when you're onto yourself all the time and you're constantly just being aware, okay, this is what I'm thinking. Do I want to think this on purpose? Is this how I want to think? No. Okay, I'm going to stop thinking that way. All right, how do I want to think? This is how I want to think. That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about clean thinking and clearing out your head. I can't even tell you how many thoughts I think on the regular that are complete lies. Like things like I'm not good enough, or that'll never work. Nobody likes it, yada, yada, yada. Like, it's total bullshit. But if I don't deliberately clear out what I'm thinking, I walk around in all that rubbish all day, and it's not fun, right? So the super cool thing is that when you actually clean out your brain, you create the space to deliberately decide and think thoughts that serve you. For example, some that I really like is money is easy. Like that's a thought I love to think. Money is fun. I am enough. I love that one. And another one is I like exactly who I am. Money is simple and easy to make. I am 100% responsible for how much money I make. And this is one I love too. I decide how much money I make. And yeah, so my ultimate abundant thought, the one I just said, is I want to be exactly who I am. Like thinking that thought on purpose and really believing it is life-changing for me, because it permeates every area of my life. You know, when I want to be exactly who I am, I don't need to buy anything to feel better, because I feel good being exactly who I am. Like that is a powerful place to live your life from. So feel free to take on any of those thoughts. They're not like exclusively mine. They're not trademarked or anything. If any of those thoughts help you, take them on board for sure. Okay, so that's all I've got for you today. Clear out your mind. Get really present with what you are thinking. Create awareness around what you're thinking. This is not an activity in making yourself feel bad that you think negative. I think negative thoughts every single day, right? There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. This is just what our brain does, okay? But just because we think a thought doesn't mean it's true, and it doesn't mean we have to believe it, right? But if you don't even look at what you're thinking, you don't realize that you're walking around in those thoughts like, I'm not good enough, money's hard, I'm never going to make enough money, I never have enough money, I'm not good enough, you know, all that stuff. It's like, no, not true. Right? So you have choice. You absolutely have choice. All right. So I am a life coach for women, in case you didn't realize. I help women just like you create the extraordinary life that you want to live on purpose. I work with women seemingly who have it all, okay? There's no reason that they should feel stuck or unsatisfied, but they do, right? They've got dreams they want to follow and they don't know how to achieve them. They feel overwhelmed by all the things they want to change. They don't know how to start or what to focus on, so they don't do anything, right? They do nothing. What I do is I help women chasing their dreams actually get started and achieve them. We organize your life. We work out all the things you want. Then we achieve them one by one. I help you become the woman you want to be in your career and in your personal life. Like I'm the help you always wanted but didn't even realize existed. Imagine that, like actually living the life you want on purpose. Priceless. And as a general life coach, I help you with all of it. Yes, you want to start a business, but you also want to lose those last 5 kilos. We do it all. And why am I the right person to help you? Because I've been through it. I know exactly what that feels like to have these goals or have these aspirations of things that you want to do, but it's like they don't even feel like they're possible. You know, they feel like they're out of your reach. And And it's not like you're not competent. You're competent of doing things, but you just can't see how. You just don't know how to make these things happen for yourself. And so then you just spin. You just sit and spin in your head about it and never actually pursue the things that you want to do. Okay, if this sounds like you and you want to find out more about working with me, it's so easy. All you have to do is go to the Money Mindful website and book a call with me. There's a little button that says consultation. I actually should change the name of that because consultation sounds so boring, and it's anything but boring when we get on the call for 45 minutes because we chat about all the stuff that you want to do in your life. We look at what are the major obstacles holding you back, and then we laser focus in on like exactly how to solve that for you. And there's no pressure. Like, I'm not going to try and sell you on anything. I mean, of course I'm going to be like, hey, I will tell you, I can help you with that if I can. And I'll also tell you, no, that's not in my wheelhouse. I can't help you with that if I can't. But if anything, it's just such a great way to spend 45 minutes for yourself to just get that clarity. Okay, what's happening? What's happening for me? What do I need to do? What's holding me back? So I would love to help you with that. It's really easy. Just go on, book a consultation. We talk over Zoom on the phone and let's sort you out. All right, my friends. Until you hear from me again, have a fabulous week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Money Mindful podcast. For more info, visit moneymindful.com.au. For future episodes, be sure to subscribe. And remember, the information in this podcast is of a general nature only and does not take into account your personal circumstances or goals. Please seek professional advice for your own financial needs. Remember to have fun along the way.